The arena was alive with noise. Thousands of alien voices filled the massive stone walls, echoing like a storm across the sky. They were not here for peace, nor for mercy. They were here to see blood, to see power, to see who would break and who would rise. At the center of the arena stood a human. He was tall but not armored, strong but not unbroken. His chest carried a wound, deep and open, a scar from battles that should have already ended him. Yet, he stood with calm eyes and a steady breath. Around him, the dust of the arena shifted with the wind, and the alien crowd jeered at his weakness. Facing him was the champion. She was no ordinary alien warrior. Her skin was marked with glowing symbols, her armor carved from black steel, and her blade long and sharp. She was feared across the galaxy, for no one had ever survived her strike. To fight her was to meet death, and the crowd knew it. The gates had closed. The trial had begun. The alien champion raised her blade and pointed it at the human's chest. Her voice rang out across the arena, cold and merciless. "You are already broken. Human, I will end you quickly, for this crowd hungers for your fall." But the human did not flinch. He did not step back, nor raise his hands in fear. He only stood there, his eyes meeting hers, steady and unshaken. That look was enough to silence part of the crowd, though they did not understand why. Then she moved. Her steps were like thunder, her blade cutting the air with deadly speed. She aimed directly at his wound, the place where no warrior should dare to resist. The crowd roared, waiting for the scream that always came, waiting for the fall that always followed. But what happened next froze them all. The blade struck. It drove into the wound with full force. There should have been blood. There should have been pain. Instead, there was a sound none expected, the sound of steel breaking. Her blade shattered against his flesh, scattering pieces across the arena floor. The alien warrior staggered back, her eyes wide. The crowd gasped, silence spreading like fire through the seats. And the human, still standing, still bleeding, only smiled. It was not a smile of mockery, nor of madness. It was a smile of something greater, something no alien there could understand. The champion's hands shook. Never in her life had her blade failed. Never had her strength been questioned. But this human, this fragile being from a forgotten world, had turned her power into nothing. Whispers rose from the arena walls. "Impossible," someone said. "No human can endure this," another cried. "What is he?" came the voice of fear. The human did not answer. He only stood, the dust at his feet rising with each breath, his smile burning brighter than the suns above. The alien warrior clenched her fists, fury and confusion battling in her chest. She had expected screams, but she had found silence. She had expected weakness, but she had found strength. For the first time in her life, she felt her own heart tremble. And in that trembling silence, the galaxy itself seemed to shift. The crowd waited breathless. The fight was not over, but already the legend had begun. The arena was still shaking with whispers. The crowd could not believe what they had seen. The strongest blade of the champion had struck the human's wound, yet the blade had shattered. And now, the human stood tall, his chest bleeding, but his smile stronger than ever. The alien champion, known as Serenia, lowered the broken hilt of her weapon. Her heart pounded in a rhythm she had never known before. Her people had called her unbreakable, but tonight it was her who had been broken, not by strength of arms, but by the mystery of a human who should not have survived. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice echoing across the arena. Her tone carried anger, but also something hidden beneath, fear. The crowd leaned forward, hungry for an answer. But the human only tilted his head and said nothing, his silence more powerful than words. The masters of the arena, the robed alien elders who ruled these games, exchanged uneasy glances. One of them whispered, "It is the human resilience, the old tales speak of it." Another shook his head. "No, those are myths. No human can resist pain like this." But still, their eyes betrayed doubt, and doubt was dangerous. Serenia circled the human, her every step slow and careful. She had fought 1,000 battles, spilled rivers of blood, crushed countless foes. But never had she felt the weight of eyes staring not at her victory, but at her failure. She raised her voice again. Do you mock me, human? Do you hide some forbidden technology under your skin? The human finally spoke, his voice low, calm, and steady. No, he said, I hide nothing, I endure. Those words echoed like thunder across the stone walls. Simple words, but heavy, as if they carried the weight of countless years of suffering and survival. The crowd murmured, confused and restless. What did he mean by endure? Serenia narrowed her eyes, searching his face, but all she found was that same unshaken smile, as if pain itself had bowed to him. Outside the arena walls, the galaxy had always mocked humans. They were called fragile, weak prey for stronger species. Yet here stood a man who bled and smiled at once. And every alien watching could not decide whether to fear him or admire him. Serenia's pride burned. She could not allow this silence, this mystery, to control her. Her people expected her to crush him, to prove their dominance once again. But deep inside, a question whispered in her mind, a question she had never asked before. What if we were wrong about humans? The human took a slow step forward, his blood dripping into the dust. But each drop seemed to carry fire, as if even his wound refused to weaken him. He spoke again, not loud, but with words that pierced through every heart. You think wounds defeat us, but wounds make us stronger, pain makes us endure, it makes us more than what we were yesterday. The words stung Serenia's ears. Her kind had never believed in weakness, never believed in rising from failure. To them, pain was the end, defeat was shame, and wounds were death. But this man, this human, turned them into something greater. The arena fell silent. Even the crowd, hungry for blood, could not shout now. They watched, frozen, as Serenia stood still, blade broken, pride shattered, and her heart filling with questions she had no answers for. The elders whispered again, nervous and unsettled. If humans can truly endure like this, they cannot be controlled. One said, they must not spread this truth. Silence him now. Another hissed. But their words trembled, for even they feared what they had seen. Serenia tightened her fists, her body trembling with conflict. She wanted to crush him, yet part of her wanted to understand him. This human was not like the other she had slain. He was something new, something dangerous. And danger always carried both fear and fascination. The human raised his gaze to the sky above the arena. Stars glimmered faintly, watching from beyond the dark. He whispered softly, words meant more for himself than anyone else. We are not strong because we do not fall. We are strong because we rise again and again. Serenia's eyes widened. The crowd held its breath. The human's mystery had only deepened. And as the night air thickened with silence, one truth became clear. The fight in the arena was no longer about victory or defeat. It was about a secret the galaxy had long ignored. The secret of human resilience. The secret of a strength born not from power, but from pain. And Serenia knew that if she did not uncover this truth, it would haunt her forever. The clash in the arena had begun as a battle, but now it was becoming something far more dangerous. A story that could change the galaxy itself. The night after the arena battle was restless. The alien city burned with whispers. Crowds filled the streets, repeating the story of the human who smiled when struck. Some mocked, calling it a trick, but others feared, saying it was a warning. The legend of resilience had begun to spread like fire through dry grass. Serenia, the warrior who had faced him, could not rest. Her mind replayed the moment when her blade had shattered. Her pride, once untouchable, now trembled with questions she could not silence. How could a human survive such pain? How could he stand when even her strongest enemies had fallen with one strike? She clenched her fists, her anger burning with confusion. She told herself she would prove the truth, even if she had to hunt him in the shadows. The human, however, did not hide. He walked the streets of the alien city as if fear had never existed. His wounds still bled, but he carried himself like a man untouched. Merchants stared, guards stepped aside, children whispered. He was no longer just a prisoner. He was a mystery that the city could not ignore. Serena followed him through the alleys, her steps silent, her presence hidden. She was a hunter, trained to stalk and kill without being seen. But tonight, something was different. Her prey did not move like prey. He walked with the calm of a predator who already knew he was being followed. When a human paused at the edge of the city, she struck. Her speed was unmatched, her claws sharp even without her blade. She lunged for his throat, but at the last moment he turned. His hand caught her wrist with unshakable force. Her eyes widened. No one had ever stopped her mid-strike. Yet he held her as if her strength meant nothing. "You should rest," the human said softly, his eyes calm. His words were not mocking. They carried no arrogance. They were simple, almost gentle, but they struck her harder than any weapon. She pulled free and stepped back, her pride screaming. "No one tells me when to stop, human," she spat, her voice trembling with rage. But deep inside, a sliver of fear touched her heart. She tried again, faster, sharper, striking from angles no alien had ever survived. Yet every attack failed. Her movements anticipated, her strikes deflected. And the human did not even strike back. He only blocked, only endured, as if her strength was nothing more than wind against a mountain. Frustration twisted inside her. She was the hunter the predator feared across worlds. But tonight, as her claws cracked against his skin, as her power failed to bring him down, a terrible thought grew inside her mind. She was no longer the hunter. She was the hunted. The human's eyes never left hers. They glowed not with fury, but with something stronger. Patience, resilience, and an unshakable will. It was not the fire of rage that scared her. It was the calm of someone who had already faced far worse and survived. Finally, exhausted, she stumbled back, her breath ragged, her armor dented, her pride bleeding. The human stepped forward, his wounds still open, but his body unbroken. "You fight as if strength is everything," he said quietly. "But strength without endurance is nothing. Pain without meaning is nothing." His words echoed in her chest like thunder. Her whole life, she had been taught that victory was power and defeat was death. Yet this human stood before her, wounded but undefeated. He shattered not her body, but her beliefs, and that frightened her more than any blade ever could. She stared at him, her voice shaking though she tried to hide it. "What are you, human? Were you really?" He smiled again, that same quiet, unsettling smile. And with calm words, he answered, "I am what you fear, and what you will one day respect. I am human." The night wind howled across the empty streets. For the first time in her life, Serena felt her knees weaken, not from injury, not from exhaustion, but from the truth that stood before her. The hunter had become the hunted, and the galaxy itself was watching, waiting to see what would come next. The fire crackled in the ruins beyond the city walls. Shadows danced across broken stones, carrying the weight of ancient wars long forgotten. The alien warrior Serena sat on one side, her armor cracked, her pride shattered. On the other side sat the human, calm, wounded, yet unbroken. The silence between them was heavy, filled with questions that neither the crowd nor the arena could answer. Serena had followed him here after their clash, not to kill, not to claim victory, but to find the truth that had shaken her soul. Her people had always believed humans were weak, prey to be hunted, slaves to be owned. Yet this one man defied all of it. He had smiled through wounds. He had endured when death was certain. And now, she could not walk away until she understood. Finally, she broke the silence. "Why do you endure, human?" she asked, her voice sharper than the fire's crack. You bleed, you break, yet you stand, you face pain, and you do not fall. Why? The human lifted his gaze from the flames. His eyes were not angry, not mocking, but filled with something far older, something carved into his very soul. He spoke slowly, each word carrying the weight of centuries. Because pain is not our end, it is our beginning. Serenia frowned, her claws digging into the earth. She had been raised in a world where wounds ended warriors, where defeat erased names. The very idea that pain could create strength felt like madness. Yet as she looked at him, his calm expression and steady voice told her it was no lie. The human leaned closer to the fire. Our kind was never the strongest, never the fastest, never the smartest in the galaxy, he said. But we survived, we endured storms, hunger, wars, even the cold of space. We lost and rose, we fell and rose again, always rising, always enduring. His words cut through her chest like a blade sharper than any she had carried. Her people believed strength was born from power, but he spoke of strength born from suffering, from scars that shaped the soul. And she could not deny that his very existence was proof of it. Serenia asked again, softer this time, "But why smile when you're wounded? Why not show your pain?" The human's smile deepened. "Because pain is not my master," he said. "If I let it control me, I lose, but if I smile, I take its power for myself. Every wound I carry is a lesson. Every scar is proof that I have lived, not died." The fire hissed, sparks rising into the night sky. Serenia stared at him, her mind in chaos. She had been trained to believe scars were shame, to hide weakness, to fear pain. But here was a human who wore his wounds as honor, who turned brokenness into strength, who smiled at the very thing others feared. For the first time, Serenia felt something she could not name. Not just respect, not just curiosity, but a strange pull deep inside her chest. This human was rewriting everything she knew, and part of her wondered if his truth was stronger than all the blades in the galaxy. The wind blew cold, carrying silence across the ruins. The human stood slowly, his wounds still bleeding, but his body steady. He looked up at the stars, his voice soft but filled with fire. "One day, your people will learn this truth, Serenia. Strength is not in how hard you strike, but in how many times you rise after falling. That is the human way, and it will outlast any empire." Serenia's breath caught in her throat. The words burned in her ears, refusing to leave. She wanted to deny them, to call them lies, but deep down, she knew. The truth was standing in front of her, bleeding yet unbroken, smiling through pain. A truth that no blade could shatter. That night, as the fire dimmed and the stars glowed brighter, Serenia realized she had not only witnessed strength, she had witnessed something far more dangerous. A truth that could spread, a truth that could change the galaxy. The human's truth. The days after the fire passed slowly. The alien city did not forget what it had seen. The story of the human spread through every market, every corridor, every dark tavern. Some laughed, saying it was chance, but others whispered of a truth more dangerous than weapons. The truth that humans could not be broken. Serenia walked those streets in silence. Her people greeted her with respect, yet behind their eyes she saw doubt. She was still their champion, but her pride no longer felt whole. Her mind was caught between rage and wonder, between what she had been taught and what she had seen. And the image of the human's smile haunted her more than any scar. At night, when the city was quiet, she followed him again. Not as a hunter now, but as a shadow. She watched him walk the ruins, climb broken towers, sit in silence with his wounds. He did not hide. He did not seek protection. He lived as if the world could not touch him. And what unsettled her most was not his strength. It was his calm. Even bleeding, even hungry, even alone, he carried himself with the dignity of a king who needed no throne. Serenia began to question things she had never dared before. If weakness could look like this, was it weakness at all? One evening, she approached him without hiding. The moonlight cut across the ruins, painting silver shadows on his face. "You should be dead," she said quietly. He looked at her, his eyes calm, his voice steady. "Maybe I should, but humans are not built to surrender." The words struck her again, sharp as blades. She folded her arms, trying to keep her voice firm. "You are still flesh. You bleed like the rest of us, yet you do not fear it. Why?" The human leaned back against the stone wall. "Because fear changes nothing," he replied. "If I fear pain, it comes anyway. If I fear death, it still arrives. So why waste breath on fear when I can use it to endure?" Serena felt her chest tighten. No alien she had ever met had spoken like this. To her kind, fear was both weapon and prison. But here stood a man who shattered that prison with a smile. She began to notice more. The way others looked at him when he passed. Merchants offered him food in silence. Soldiers lowered their eyes. Even the young, who should have mocked, instead followed him with awe. Without trying, without force, he was earning respect. Respect born not of conquest, but of endurance. Serena realized something terrifying. If his truth spread beyond this city, if the galaxy learned to respect humans, everything her people believed would be shaken. Empires built on dominance would tremble. For how can you conquer those who refuse to stay broken? That night, she asked him a question that burned her mind. "Do you fight for power, human, or for revenge?" He shook his head, his gaze steady. "No, I fight for neither. I fight because life demands it. We fight because to stop is to die, and humans do not stop." Her breath caught. Her claws curled against her palms. For the first time in her long warrior life, she bowed her head slightly. Not in surrender, but in acknowledgement. She whispered, "Perhaps you are stronger than I believed." The human gave no triumph in his smile. He simply nodded, as if her words meant little. But in truth, those words carried weight she had never given another. A weight she did not even realize was respect. As the shadows deepened and the fires of the city dimmed, Serena felt the shift inside her heart. The man she had once sworn to kill had become something else. Not prey, not enemy, but a question she needed to answer. And though she would never admit it aloud, the answer was pulling her closer each day. In the quiet darkness, the galaxy turned unnoticed. But for Serena, everything had already begun to change. The respect she felt was dangerous. For respect could grow into something more. And in the heart of a warrior raised on pride, that change was a storm waiting to break. The day of reckoning arrived. The arena gates opened once more, and the galaxy gathered to witness. The rumors of the human had spread beyond the city, across ships and colonies. Crowds filled the seats, some eager for his death, others desperate to see if the stories were true. Could a fragile human truly stand against the champion again? Serena stood in the preparation hall, her armor reforged, her new blade gleaming in the torchlight. But her heart was not the same as before. This was no longer just another fight, no longer a test of strength alone. Something deeper had taken root inside her, a strange respect, a dangerous pull, and it made the weight of this battle heavier than any she had fought. The elders of the arena demanded blood. They had whispered of silencing the human, ending the dangerous truth he carried. If he survived again, their control would fracture, their lies about human weakness would fall apart. Serena knew their eyes would be on her, expecting her to crush him completely. But for the first time in her life, she was not certain she wanted to obey. The gates opened, and the roar of the crowd filled the sky. The human walked into the sand, his wound now scarred but his eyes steady. He had no armor, no weapon, only that calm presence that unsettled warriors more than blades. When his gaze met hers, there was no fear, no hatred, only quiet defiance. And deep inside, she felt the tremor of something her people would never forgive: admiration. The announcer's voice thundered. Champion Serena faced the human once more, and in this legend today. The crowd roared, stamping feet and claws, hungry for blood. Serenia raised her blade high, but her arm felt heavier than it ever had. The human stepped forward, his voice carrying across the silence that followed. "I do not fight to destroy you, Serenia," he said. "I fight only because your people demand it." The words echoed, unsettling the crowd. For no one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had dared strip the fight of its glory. They clashed, her blade slicing through the air. But every strike felt weaker than before, not in strength, but in purpose. She could not bring herself to aim for his heart. Her strikes curved away, testing him, measuring him, and each time, he stood firm, blocking with nothing but endurance. The crowd grew restless, shouting for blood. The elders whispered with fury, demanding the champion strike true. But Serenia's heart was at war. This man had shown her a truth stronger than pride. To kill him now would be to kill the very respect she had found. Finally, in the center of the arena, she stopped, her blade raised, the human standing unarmed before her. The silence stretched, the galaxy holding its breath. Then, with a motion that stunned all who watched, she lowered her weapon. And instead, she offered it to him, blade first. Gasps spread through the arena. Never in their history had a champion offered her blade to an enemy. It was not surrender, but honor, a recognition only given to the worthy. The elders shouted in rage, but their voices drowned beneath the shock of the crowd. The human looked at the blade, then at her. He did not take it as a trophy. He did not lift it as a conqueror. He simply touched the hilt and gave her that same quiet smile. The smile that had broken her pride, reshaped her beliefs, and now bound her to something greater. The crowd erupted, not with jeers, but with chaos. Some cried betrayal, others shouted praise. The truth had escaped the chains of the arena. A human had been honored, and no elder's voice could silence what had already been seen. Serenia bowed her head slightly, her voice low but steady. "You are not prey, human. You are something far greater." The human answered softly, "No, I'm only what pain has made me, and what endurance has kept alive." The arena shook with the storm of voices. But for Serenia, the noise faded away. In her heart, the choice had been made. She had chosen honor over pride, truth over lies, respect over fear. And that choice would change the galaxy. The arena had never known silence like this. Tens of thousands sat frozen, eyes wide, voices stolen. A blade had not been raised in triumph, but offered in respect. In the moment Serenia lowered her weapon before the human, history itself shifted. The elders roared in fury, their voices cracking like thunder. "This cannot be." The champion bows to no one, in this shame at once. But their cries were weak against the weight of what all had seen. A truth too bright to hide, too sharp to bury. The human stood with the blade in his hand. He did not raise it, did not claim victory with shouts or blood. He simply looked at Serenia, and then at the crowd. And then he smiled, that same quiet, unshakable smile. The smile that had defied pain, broken weapons, and shattered lies. Gasps spread like fire. For in that smile, the people saw something more dangerous than power. They saw freedom, they saw defiance, they saw endurance made flesh. And once seen, it could never be forgotten. Serenia stepped back, her chest heavy. She had chosen her path, and now the galaxy would follow. Her voice rose, steady and clear, carrying across the stone walls. "This human is no slave, no prey, no weakness. He is proof of strength greater than ours." The arena shook with voices, some screaming denial, others cheering in awe. But deep inside, the balance had already tipped. The elders could not erase what the crowd now believed. They could not silence the respect burning in their champion's voice. The human lowered the blade and placed it back into Serenia's hands. His voice calm, his smile unbroken. "I do not seek to rule. I do not seek to destroy. I only seek to endure. And endurance, once seen, cannot be undone." Those words etched themselves into memory. Whispers spread through the crowd and beyond the walls of the arena. Across ships, colonies, and stars, the tale of the human who smiled at pain took root. And every whisper was a spark, every spark a fire that would not die. The elders, realizing their control was slipping, ordered guards to strike. But the soldiers hesitated, their claws trembling. They had seen what the people had seen. They too wondered if the human strength was something to fear or something to follow. Serenia stood before him, her blade raised not in attack, but in defense. Her loyalty had shifted, her honor no longer tied to the lies of her masters. She turned to the elders, her voice sharp. If you strike him, you strike me, and you will see your champion rise against you. The crowd erupted, louder than thunder. For the first time in living memory, the people stood not with the rulers, but with the human and the warrior who honored him. The chains of fear had cracked, and the truth had slipped free. The human raised his eyes to the stars above. His wound still raw, his body still scarred. But his smile burned brighter than any torch. And in that moment, he was more than a man. He was a symbol, a spark, a truth too strong for empires to contain. Serenia looked at him, and for the first time, bowed her head not in shame, but in respect. Her words barely a whisper, but carried by the silence of all who listened. Your smile has changed me, human, and now will change the galaxy. The night fell heavy over the city, but in the hearts of all who had witnessed, a new dawn had already risen. The legend of the human who endured would spread. A legend not of conquest, but of resilience. Not of swords, but of scars. Not of fear, but of a smile. And so began the story that would echo across stars. The story of the smile that changed a galaxy.